Hey everyone, it's Katie back to answer some questions that you've submitted via YouTube and our website to get a better understanding of different admissions topics. Don't forget that if you'd like to submit a question for us to answer on these CollegeVine Q&As, leave your question in the comments below this video. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you're the first to see the Q&A video answering your question. Let's get started with today's series of questions. Our first one is from Joshua, who messaged us to ask, what are the best methods for receiving a high SAT score? Call it 1500 plus. Thanks for asking this question, Joshua. It's a question that we get often at CollegeVine, and we're happy to have the chance to talk about it here on this Q&A video. While we don't have any top secret formulas for acing the SAT, those really don't exist, we do have some time-tested tips and strategies to help any student maximize your score. Here are some of our favorite tips. One is to just know the test inside and out. That means not just memorizing the sections and how much time you'll have for each section, but knowing the directions on each section of the test, knowing the format of the questions, and becoming quite familiar with the content. The best way to accomplish that familiarity is to just read up on the test extensively and take a load of official practice tests. To get you started, you should know that the SAT is structured into 3 tests with an optional 4th essay test. Those 3 are reading, writing and language, math, and then the optional one is the essay section. The reading test measures your reading comprehension and analysis skills using excerpts from literary fiction or academic texts. You have 65 minutes to answer 52 questions. You have 4 single passages in prose, social sciences, and sciences, and you have 1 pair of passages in either social studies or science. You have 10 to 11 questions for each single or paired passage, and all of these questions are in multiple choice. Test 2, the writing and language test, measures your proofreading and editing skills using unfinished drafts. You have 35 minutes to answer 44 questions here. There are 4 passages in narrative nonfiction, social studies, science, and career or industry, 11 questions per passage, and once again, all of these are multiple choice questions. Note that the questions might be in an unfamiliar format. Many of these questions refer to an underlined portion within the passage as a point of reference, and you'll be asked to choose the answer that best improves that part of the underlined passage. These questions will also include a no change option, which means that the way that it currently appears in the passage is the grammatically and stylistically best choice. Test 3, the math test, measures your logic and problem-solving skills using mathematical concepts. You have 2 sections, a no calculator and a calculator section. The no calculator section is 25 minutes long with 20 questions, 15 multiple choice questions, and 5 gridded response questions, which means you actually need to come up with a number and then bubble it in. The calculator section is 55 minutes long with 38 questions. There are 30 multiple choice questions and 8 more of those gridded response questions where you need to develop the answer yourself. The SAT essay section is optional, but it does allow you to demonstrate your reading, analysis, and writing skills. If you take it, you have 50 minutes to respond to 1 essay question. The question involves analyzing a provided argument and explaining how the author develops the argument to actually persuade his or her reader. The 50 minutes includes time for reading the actual passage, analyzing it, planning your essay, and ultimately writing the essay, a lot to get done in that time. The SAT was significantly modified in 2016, both in structure and in scoring. For more information about the new SAT, check out our ultimate guides to the test, which are linked in the comments below this video. Another tip is to identify your weaknesses. So everyone has a test-taking weakness. What sets close to perfect scorers apart from the rest of everyone is that they learned how to overcome those weaknesses to achieve their goals. You'll need to identify your weaknesses before you can develop strategies to overcome them. This means that you need to spend time analyzing your score on a previous SAT or using one of the practice tests that the College Board provides to discover your weaknesses. You want to analyze every question that you missed and why you missed it so that you know what to avoid in the future. Identify patterns of mistakes based on any number of factors, like the question type or how confident you felt answering that question. Some common types of weaknesses include the following. 1 is spending too much time on a single question or just getting stuck on that question. Another is rushing through questions, going too fast. You may have misread the question, or you may not have known an academic concept at all. Most of us are blind to our own weaknesses. But to get a perfect score, you really need to be brutally honest with yourself and what you're actually good and not so good at on the SAT. Give yourself plenty of time to be thorough about this analysis. You may want to do it over the course of 3 sittings, 1 each for reading, for writing and language, and then for math. Develop strategies to overcome your weaknesses. Once you understand what your SAT weaknesses are, you'll then be able to answer this question. Why do you make the mistakes that you make? The answer to that question is really crucial in bettering your SAT score. Here's a common mistake pattern. You're taking the SAT and you spend time being stumped by a question. You then realize that you've spent too much time on the question, and then you get a little bit flustered and you rush through the next 5 questions to try and make up for that short delay, committing careless mistakes as you go. So now you've kind of exacerbated the initial issue. That situation might sound pretty familiar to some of us watching this video. Many of us have done this on a test before, whether it was the SAT or a test for a class. In this case, the initial mistake was spending too much time on one question. The solution is to develop a strategy for being decisive about when to move on to other questions so that you don't need to rush the rest of the test and make careless mistakes. It could be as simple as making a snap judgment about whether a question is easy or difficult to solve. You would solve it if it seems easy, or you would return to it later if it seems difficult. Here are some example solutions for a few of the other weaknesses listed above. For the weakness of misreading question. This often happens on the reading and the writing and language tests. As a form of practice, try rephrasing the questions on a practice SAT and then answer the rephrasing of that question that you just wrote. It'll help you to make sure that you understand the nuances of each question before you actually skip straight to the answers. Another weakness that might need a solution is not knowing an academic concept. Sometimes you just don't understand a concept thoroughly, or you're not able to recognize when the test is drawing upon knowledge that you do have. In this case, you'll need to teach yourself the concept with online resources. That might be materials from your local library or asking a trusted teacher from school for additional assistance on that particular topic. Yet another tip is to just create a consistent study schedule. So you've analyzed your score from a diagnostic, you've identified your weaknesses, you know how you need to improve, and you'll get an idea for how much time you need to set aside for actually working on those weaknesses. The further your current score is from 1600, logically the more time that you'll need to devote to studying before you take the SAT for real. Why is that? Well, many students don't put in as much time as they need during their self-guided studying because they're focused on too many different aspects of the test. You want to create a schedule that allows you to brainstorm strategies that might help you overcome any of the weaknesses that you hopefully already identified, and then give you time to practice and refine those strategies such that you can do them really easily on test day. To create a consistent schedule, look at what your current time obligations are. How much time do you spend at school, of course, in your extracurricular activities, working a part-time job, on homework, on socializing? You want to give yourself enough time to keep up with all of the other activities that fill your life, and schedule times when you need to actually sit down and devote to SAT studying. You may need to slightly rearrange other responsibilities, at least temporarily, just to make space for the SAT. Once you've established when you're studying, you may want to connect getting a 1600 to a bigger goal. Frankly, you won't stay motivated for very long if getting 1600 is just about getting 1600. You need it to be tied to one of your values, like I want to go to my dream school, I want to make my family proud. Remind yourself why you're putting in this work every time you sit down and study, and it should be a bit more motivating. Another tip is to test and refine your strategies based on practice. So there's no one strategy that will actually work for everyone. You need to put your strategies to the test, to make sure that they're giving you the results that you want. You want to work on one weakness at a time, maybe 2, instead of trying to focus on everything at once, because that can get very overwhelming. As you work on improving just one weakness, your score should go up at least a little bit. As you saw in the earlier example, by being decisive about when to move on to another question, you could eliminate a tendency to rush and avoid quite a few careless mistakes that might really improve your score. Make sure, though, that this strategy works consistently before you call it good and move on to another weakness. You'll find that some strategies work really well, and you'll try some that just don't really work for you. That's why you need to have a growth mindset. Instead of getting hung up on a single recommended strategy that you may have seen in a book or on one of our videos, but that strategy didn't work for you, you just need to scrap it and try a new approach and see if it works better for you. The SAT is ultimately a very individual thing. Another tip is to continue to analyze your weaknesses and the test structure to further improve. Overcoming your weaknesses takes work, and it's a cyclical process. Once you've gotten the hang of one strategy, you'll need to go back and do the same process with a new one until you're at the point where you're getting every question right, or at least a big portion of the questions right. While you may have analyzed the test structure a bit in the first step, it's often more helpful to do it at a later point in the process as well. Why? Well, because you'll naturally begin to see that you often miss a particular question type, and that might be unrelated to test jitters or not knowing the material. You'll be able to spot the questions that trip you up just by reading it, and that gives you the advantage of paying close attention and being able to identify those weaknesses and, again, develop strategies. Use the SAT practice tests to assess how well your strategy works. When it comes to the real test, you'll need to be able to identify the question type so that you know which strategy to apply pretty quickly. Often you'll use a combination of strategies, such as underlining key phrases in the question and drawing upon an academic concept that you learned to actually find the correct answer. Overall, a lot of tips. We hope that they will help you to achieve those SAT goals, Joshua. Best of luck. Question number 2 for today is from Arthur, who asked, if I get an internship through my dad, is that a downside? Will colleges know that I got it through my dad's company, and will that look worse? First of all, Arthur, you're doing a great job by planning ahead, and remember that internships are a really strong option for students who want to gain professional experience in a field of interest or try out a possible career path. The problem is that internships can be hard to find, and many companies don't make a practice of taking on interns, particularly high school interns, since they can sometimes be a lot of work to manage without offering a whole ton in return. The truth of the matter is that a lot of high school students are able to procure internships because of a parent, a relative, a family friend who is able to pull some strings and create a temporary position for them at their company. It might not seem fair, but it's a good lesson for college and beyond. Networking and leveraging your connections can get you quite far in high school, in college, and in your career and broader life. So, if you're okay with getting an internship at any company and you're not too picky about the work, it's absolutely okay and recommended to use your connections to secure you an internship opportunity. If you do wind up getting an internship through your connections, your parents, or otherwise, keep in mind that it might not be an internship in a field that you are necessarily interested in. For example, if most of your community of adults work in engineering, say, you're unlikely to get anywhere by asking them for an internship in fine arts. It's just frankly not what they do, and so they don't have the connections. When you use your connections, you just often can't be quite as picky. That means that it may be better to look elsewhere if your true interests are in a really different direction and you would actually prefer not to take the internship through your connection. But Arthur, if you do end up getting an internship at your dad's company, it's best to arrange it so that your work is as far removed from him as possible. Whenever it's appropriate, arrange to have someone else be your direct supervisor, or better yet, ask to be placed in an entirely different department. Also be sure that you don't use your personal relationship to leverage any other perks with the company. You want to make sure that you're held to the same standards as everyone else there, and you want to be able to work just as hard to earn respect and be successful. Here are a few more top tips to be successful in any internship, regardless of how you actually got the position. One is to just manage your expectations. You oughtn't walk into a high school internship thinking that you are going to be developing the next groundbreaking product or finding a cure for cancer. For any intern, but especially interns in high school, you should expect a fair amount of busy work and pretty simple administrative tasks. If you get those assignments, don't be offended. Just take the task, do it well, and try to learn something from doing those basic tasks. Another tip is to manage their expectations. Especially in older companies that have older employees, there unfortunately are some rather nasty misconceptions about the way that Generation Z members behave in the workplace. Similar to the rumors that are spread about millennials in the workplace, Generation Z interns are sometimes presumed to be arrogant, lazy, or entitled. When you enter a summer internship, especially if it is one procured through a personal connection like your dad, you may find that some people in the internship treat you based on the unfair stereotype they hold about people in your age group. If this happens to you, it's important that you handle it with grace and with composure. Take any broad-based accusation as constructive criticism and just work actively throughout your summer internship to prove them wrong. At the end of the day, remember that if your boss or coworker is making negative assumptions about you based on stereotypes associated with Generation Z in the workplace, it's probably because they've just never worked with someone your age before. Take this as an opportunity to actually teach your coworkers what people your age are really like, with great work ethic and a highly professional attitude. Another tip is just to be attentive. Throughout your time in the office, you never want to look bored or like you're not paying attention or don't want to be there. If you're in a meeting, you want to be physically and mentally present. You want to speak up every once in a while to show that you're paying attention. If you're just doing work at your desk, try not to stop too much to surf the web or go on social media. While at work, you should really be doing work as much as possible. You'd be surprised how many bosses will randomly check on their interns without any particular warning, just to make sure that they're actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. If you got caught watching Netflix or checking your Instagram, it might not leave the best impression, and unfortunately, it may only reinforce those stereotypes that we discussed earlier. Another tip is to be respectful. Always start out a summer internship assuming that every permanent member of the company is your superior. Eventually, you may learn that the office culture is a bit more casual, or you may form a more friendly relationship with some of your coworkers, but that should come later. When you first walk in the door, It's definitely to be assumed that everyone is superior and you should take direction from everyone. Also, while you're at your summer internship, try to defer to the judgment of your coworkers and bosses as much as possible. They have been there longer, they're probably quite a bit older than you, and they probably know what's best. If you know for an absolute fact that something they're doing or saying is wrong, an absolute fact, you can maybe speak up about it. Otherwise, try not to argue with the full-time employees and avoid strong differences in opinion. Really, what we're trying to say by all this is that at the end of it, it doesn't matter who got you your internship. What matters much, much more is what you actually accomplished while you were there and how you're able to use that experience to build skills, to network, to learn about the profession or the career path, and to be prepared to explain what you accomplished during your time there, both in future interviews and the college admissions process. Ultimately, if you can prove yourself in your position, no one will really care how you got it in the first place. Our final question today is from Sydney, who wanted to know what are some good extracurricular activities for someone who is interested in studying engineering as a major in college? Well, hello Sydney, and thank you for asking us this wonderful question. We work with a lot of aspiring engineers, and it's a topic that we've covered in some of our blog posts, which we're going to link in the comments below this video, so you should go check those out. But also, let me talk about it for a little bit. So first off, if you're interested in pursuing a career in engineering, you probably already realize that good grades and high test scores are not quite enough these days to get you into a top engineering program. Top programs such as those at, say, MIT or Stanford have acceptance rates that dip well into the single digits, so it's very difficult to get in. To do so, you actually need to truly set yourself apart, and activities are one of the best ways to do that. You can demonstrate exemplary skills in the field, showing dedication to your interest, and proving your ability to lead. Those are all important in the applications process, and those are all things that you can get from a great extracurricular activity. By carefully choosing activities that showcase not only your academic skills, but also your personal qualities, your leadership, your dedication, all of those wonderful things, you can stand out to admissions committees and ultimately increase your chances of getting into a top-notch engineering program. If you're interested in studying engineering, you should focus on extracurriculars that show your scholastic aptitude in STEM, alongside some creative problem-solving skills as well. Here's a list of clubs to consider that might be particularly interesting if you want to study engineering. Things like 3D Printing Club, Aeronautics Club, Aviation Club, Ham Radio Club, something like Makerspace, for instance, a Robotics Club, Rocketry Club, or a Rube Goldberg Club. There are also lots of national clubs and competitions, separate of those that you might find in your high school, that would make a great choice if you want to be an engineer and demonstrate your passion for engineering on your college application. Here are a few that we love at CollegeVine. One is the VEX Robotics Competition. At this competition, teams of students design, build, and code robots to compete in a game in a competitive atmosphere with state, regional, and national competitions that actually culminate in an annual World Championship. Tournaments are held year-round, with the World Championship taking place each April, kind of near the end of the school year. In addition to working on classroom STEM skills and knowledge, participants gain experience in teamwork, leadership, communications, and a lot of other valuable qualities. Another one to check out is Odyssey of the Mind, which is a long-standing creative problem-solving competition that exists at every level from school-wide to worldwide. You can become involved as early as elementary school, actually, and you'll integrate STEM skills with performance, arts, and history. It's more of a multidisciplinary club. Past projects have led students to design mechanical dinosaurs, invent new factory machinery, build working vehicles, write a new chapter to Moby Dick, put a twist on classic artworks, turn Pandora's box into a video game, and many other challenges. This year's challenges for 2020 include detective work, a balsa wood building challenge, and a networking performance that simulates world communications and includes pop-up advertisements and malware. Another club option is Physics Olympiad. Physics Olympiad is a science competition that takes place over a series of tests in physics subjects. There are 2 levels of exams, and the top 20 finishers of the second level exam will go on an intensive study camp and eventually represent the United States at the International Physics Olympiad. Progressing through the rounds of this competition would demonstrate your passion and knack for physics very well as it would represent your commitment to working hard. If you made it all the way to the national team, that would be a Tier 1 extracurricular, which would be great for your college application. Then you might consider science and engineering fairs. These can range in size and prestige, from ones at your local school to national ones like the Google Science Fair. But no matter what level you're competing at, having a new and interesting scientific endeavor on your academic profile can help demonstrate where your interests lie, as well as your capacity for innovation. You should think hard about your topic and really spend time on your research proposal to give your project its best shot. Thank you to the three of you who submitted questions for us this week, and hopefully these answers provided some helpful advice. If you want to have a question answered in an upcoming Q&A, remember to submit that question for us in the comments below this video. And don't forget that if you're looking for completely free guidance on your essays, your college applications, and much more, visit us online at app.collegevine.com and go ahead and create an account. In the meantime, we'll see you soon for our next Q&A.